Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. In the cold, calculating logic of the Zidari supremacy, war is a transaction. You measure the strength of your fleet against the strength of the enemy's. When the probability of victory reaches zero, the losing side surrenders. It is the only sensible thing to do. Life, after all, is the ultimate value. Most species in the galaxy will accept slavery, taxation, or even the loss of their home world if it means the survival of their bloodline. To the Zidari, surrender is just a pivot in management. They had conquered 10,000 worlds, and on every single one, the inhabitants eventually bent the knee when the odds became impossible. Then they reached the Sol system. They found a species that had survived 5 world-ending wars on its own soil. They found a species that had perfected the art of the Doomsday machine. And most importantly, they found a species that possessed a psychological trait the Zidari could not translate: spite. This is the story of the day the galaxy learned that humanity would rather rule over a pile of radioactive ash than live as a gilded trophy in an alien's collection. The Zidari Grand Fleet, led by High Sovereign Zul, was the largest force ever assembled in the Orion Arm. 2 million ships, powered by the hearts of captured stars, surrounded the Earth. The human defense fleet, the Terran United Navy, was outnumbered 50 to 1. Their ships were primitive, their shields were weak, and their weapons were essentially hot metal. Zul opened a communication channel to the Terran command in Geneva. He expected to see a room full of weeping diplomats and panicked generals. Instead, he saw Admiral Sarah Halloway. She was sitting in a high-back chair, sipping a glass of bourbon, looking like she was watching a sunset rather than a genocide. Admiral Halloway, Zul's voice boomed across the holographic link. I am High Sovereign Zul. Your defenses are a rounding error. Your species has 10 minutes to transmit the codes for unconditional surrender. If you do not, we will glass your continents and salt your oceans. Choose life or choose extinction. Admiral Halloway didn't stand up. She didn't even put down her drink. She just looked at Zul with a cold, almost pitying smile. You're Zul, right? Sovereign of the 10,000 worlds? She asked. I am, Zul replied, confused by her lack of terror. Well, Zul, you've clearly done your homework on our fleet. But you didn't do your homework on our history. We've been threatening to blow ourselves up since the 1940s. We've had a dead hand system active for centuries. You see those missiles appearing on your sensors. Zul looked at his tactical officer. The officer's scales turned a pale, sickly gray. High Sovereign, thousands of high-yield thermonuclear warheads have been launched. But they are not targeting us. Where are they going? Zul demanded. They are targeting the sun, the officer whispered, and the major volcanic fault lines of Earth. They are also targeting the moon's structural integrity. Zul turned back to Halloway. You are insane. You are targeting your own star? If those warheads reach the solar core, the resulting solar flare will sterilize this entire system. You will all be vaporized. Exactly, Halloway said, leaning forward. Her eyes were hard as flint. We call it the Icarus Protocol. See, Zul, we humans have a very simple rule. If we can't have our house, nobody gets to have the house. We aren't going to fight your 2 million ships. We can't win that. But we can win the race to the grave. In 5 minutes, those nukes will hit. Earth will crack like an egg. The sun will scream. And your grand fleet will be caught in a supernova-level event that will wipe out half of your empire's military strength in one go. This is a bluff. Zul roared, his fist slamming onto the bridge console. No species would choose total annihilation over a comfortable surrender. That's the difference between us, Zul, Halloway replied, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. You value your life. We value our pride. We've been practicing for the end of the world for a long time. This isn't a bluff. This is thermonuclear spite. We'd rather be a ghost story than your servants. So you have 2 choices. You can stay here and watch us burn, and take you with us, or you can turn those ships around and tell your people that the Sol system is a forbidden zone. The Zidari bridge was silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, the math didn't work. Game theory relies on both players wanting to survive. When one player is a suicide bomber with a nuke the size of a star, the game ends. Zul looked at his tactical data. The missiles were moving. They were seconds away from the point of no return. High Sovereign, the officer screamed. We must jump. If the sun goes, the warp well will collapse. Zul stared at Halloway. He saw a woman who was perfectly willing to die just to prove a point. He saw a race of people who would set their own house on fire to keep an intruder from sleeping in the bed. Withdraw, Zul whispered, the words tasting like poison. All ships. Emergency warp. Now. The 2 million golden ships vanished in a blur of light. The invincible fleet fled from a single planet because they couldn't handle the madness of the human heart. Admiral Holloway watched the screens clear. She let out a long, shaky breath and tapped her console. This is command to all silos. Terminate Icarus Protocol. Divert warheads to deep space. It's over. She finished her drink in one gulp. The humans had won the war without firing a single shot at the enemy. They had won by pointing the gun at their own head and daring the universe to watch them pull the trigger. Today there is a giant caution sign on every galactic map around the Sol system. It doesn't warn about human weapons or human technology. It warns about human spite. The galaxy learned that while humanity is small, it possesses a dark, irrational core of defiance that defies all logic. In the Zidari history books, the humans are no longer called a primitive species. They are called the Sun Killers. And the lesson they teach their young commanders is simple. Never corner a human. They don't have a surrender reflex. They only have a detonator. And they would rather be the kings of a graveyard than the subjects of a king. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. We aren't the best at winning, but we are the absolute best at making sure nobody else wins either. If you've ever done something just to spite someone who thought they had you beat, hit that like button. You're a Sun Killer at heart. Comment below. Do you think the human bluff was actually a bluff, or would we have pulled the trigger? Subscribe. And remember, the best defense is a really, really big threat. Clock stopped at 0. We're still here.